Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. Dai here, and it's time for some more Fate Grand Order lore. We in North America finally got our hands on Lilim Harlot, the collaboration event with FGO Arcade. I don't always cover events, but this particular one is juicy enough that I'll be including it. Now that the planet is pissed at us for having all these extra servants, why not double down and befriend another beast of humanity? Luckily, this event has nothing to do with the current Lost Belt drama, as it stands on its own. However, there's just one major problem. Players outside Japan never got to properly experience FGO Arcade, yet the event plays off plot points unique to that game. It's kinda hard to appreciate a new take on something when you haven't seen the original. Luckily, it's not too hard to get the gist of it, and I'm confident saying this video doubles as a lore for both the Lilim Harlot event and FGO Arcade in general. I was planning to make separate entries, but now I see that would be redundant. Put bluntly, FGO Arcade's story takes place in a separate universe with a different continuity. Much of it appears to be the same as we know, with Chaldea fighting to resolve the 7 singularities. That said, there's no official script until you reach the 6th singularity, which is where lots of differences emerge. Prior to that, we can assume events transpired similarly within both games, with only a couple of noteworthy differences. For one, Dr. Roman isn't present in Arcade's story. Instead, Da Vinci is commanding the entire operation from the get-go. By extension, Solomon's not the main bad guy anymore. We fight against demon god pillars, but they aren't associated with Gaetia. When we visit America, instead of finding Rama, we get his sexy wife Sita. In fact, there are a handful of arcade-exclusive servants, like Santa Suzuka Gozen. She's mega hot, but doesn't really affect the narrative one way or the other. I'll address the more important differences as we encounter them. Instead of the male Merlin, his role is taken by a female counterpart. FGO Arcade chose to use Merlin's design from Fate prototype. Lore-wise, she's pretty much the same. While male Merlin is an incubus, femme Merlin is a succubus. Rather than a womanizer, she is a temptress. The King Arthur she serves is Prototype's male version, who now travels from world to world like Musashi. His goal is to find and slay Beast 6, more specifically Beast 6G. We'll come back to that. Now, as far as the mobile game is concerned, we actually meet Femme Merlin during the 7th summer event, Arctic Summer World. Since the mobile game's Ritsuka already knows male Merlin, the female one pretends to be his sister, insisting we call her Lady Avalon. Regardless, she likes to stick her nose into our affairs, helping in her own mysterious way. The greatest difference between FGO and FGO Arcade is the antagonist. Rather than Gaetia incinerating humanity for the chance to reinvent humans without the concept of death, we've got bewitching Queen Draco, a beast imitating Gaetia's singularities, so she can bring the human order to ruin and then devour it as a delicious meal. Within Christian scripture, the New Testament's Book of Revelations makes a number of apocalyptic prophecies. Among them is the coming of a beast, referring to a number of things that fate kinda blends into one singular entity. We've got a 7-headed dragon that later reveals itself as Satan. There's a beast of the sea, interpreted as being the Antichrist. Said beast also has 7 heads, with crowns on each of their horns. Lastly, there's the beast of the earth, a false prophet. Also within Revelations is a figure called the Whore of Babylon, or Mother Harlot. She's described as riding atop the 7-headed beast, and often symbolizes an evil kingdom. While Fate often likes to assume mythology is literal, with all these different gods and monsters actually existing during the Age of Gods, this beast seems more symbolic. Scholars often view that the Beast of Revelation symbolizes the Roman Empire, specifically Emperor Nero. Historically, Nero was a tyrannical persecutor of Christians, even blaming them for Rome's Great Fire. In Hebrew numerology, the name Neron Caesar, or Nero Caesar, combines to total 666. Coincidentally, this spelling of Neron Caesar happens to be how you spell Nero Chaos, the villain from Tsukihime. Since Fate's Nero happens to be a woman, she and her empire also qualify as the Whore of Babylon. Mystery within Fate refers to how human belief gives rise to the supernatural. Even if there weren't a literal beast of revelation, its legends being attributed to Nero give her power when summoned as a heroic spirit. Most of the time that's not an issue, as manifests as our adorable, misunderstood saber. That said, it's possible for Nero to manifest with beast traits, for the darker side of her personality to relish in all the corrupt bestial legends surrounding her. It's been a while since the Septim Singularity, so let's revisit Nero's backstory. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus was Rome's 5th emperor. She was never slated to become the emperor, but her mom, Julia Augusta Agrippina, conspired to gain power. Agrippina married Emperor Claudius and convinced him to adopt Nero as his heir. She then murdered Claudius so that Nero could ascend the throne at the age of 17. Agrippina wanted power for herself, and thus used Nero as a puppet through which she could rule. To more easily manipulate Nero, Agrippina had her slowly poisoned. Poor Umu would always drink from a silver cup, with the poison causing her headaches and delirium. Ultimately, Nero would cut down her own mother, but without Agrippina's political scheming, her rule quickly declined. Most of Nero's relatives hated her, knowing her as an illegitimate heir who only took the throne through deception. As a result, Nero cared more about her citizens than nobility. Despite this, she severely overestimated her own importance, basking in what seemed like public adoration. She did bring about a great cultural renaissance, but in the end, the common masses abandoned her in the face of revolt. Nero was branded a traitor and exiled from Rome. Left alone, she sought to take her own life, hesitating multiple times before finally piercing her neck beneath a cold sunset. Heroic spirit Nero has mostly come to terms with this, choosing to live as proudly as ever. Beast Nero, on the other hand, is a version where she chooses to oppose her fate, refusing to die alone, betrayed by her own people. In life, Nero actually did her best to pacify the Great Fire of Rome, but in beast form, she would become that flame and bring about humanity's end. More specifically, she wants to unite all of mankind's sinful desires into a single city and devour it for dinner. This land of sin parallels the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities destroyed by God as a warning to the rest. As we've seen in the past, beasts of humanity sometimes manifest in pairs. Beast 3, for instance, had two separate forms, Beast 3L and Beast 3R, occupied by Kama and Chiara Sessioin respectively. Likewise, Beast 6 exists as a pair. Our Nero beast is 6S, or Beast Sodom, while the one that Arthur hunts down from Prototype is called Beast 6G, or Beast Gomorrah. At first, this Nero starts off in a juvenile state, a loli called Draco. With a holy grail in tow, she commands the seven-headed bestia Coccinea, otherwise known as the demonic beast Incarnadines. They go around acting like Gaetia's demon god pillars, maintaining 7 singularities that Chaldea needs to defeat. In place of Solomon's Temple of Time, Chaldea fights against a fully matured Nero in the Lilim Harlot finale. Like the Temple of Time, Ritska faces off against the previous pillars, in this case the Incarnadines, but is now aided by all the servants encountered along the way. Leading the charge is King Hassan, along with some other special allies. In the mobile game, Tiamat was Beast 2, our final boss for the 7th singularity. She was a motherly creator god who couldn't help but spread her love through destruction. As such, she was happy when Chaldea defeated her, and to give thanks, she chooses to aid the Chaldea of FGO Arcade. Manifesting in a larval state, Tiamat wants to help Arcade's Ritska battle against Draco, who is considered another calamity from the sea. She can occasionally ascend to an adult state, but is bound to return to her petite shape when the battle is through. Tiamat's everyone's mama, and I adore how devoted she is to that task. During the Babylon Singularity, she showed up to join the party alongside Noah, who was summoned as a Grand Rider. Just as he appeared though, Draco injured him, and to survive, he needed to combine with another heroic spirit. Thus, Noah initially takes the form of an adult Captain Nemo, only revealing his true name when protecting Chaldea from a massive flood. He used all his energy in that endeavor, but returns during the final battle. Strangely, Noah doesn't appear at all in the collaboration event. FGO Arcade's story ends with Chaldea destroying Draco and putting a stop to the singularities. There's no mention of lost belts, and the whole ordeal is sorta anticlimactic. Turns out, there are some folks who aren't happy with this ending for various reasons. For one, the demonic beast incarnadines refuse to die. If their own timeline's gonna suck so bad, they're willing to reach out to other universes for a second chance. Their goal is to resurrect Draco as a matured beast and then take over without Nero's consciousness interfering. To that end, they choose to drag the Ritsuka from FGO Mobile into this mess, quite literally pulling us into Draco's proof world and forcing us into a contract with Draco, who is now an alter ego servant. Draco herself, while she won't admit it, wants to die. After losing in the arcade game, she's accepted her loss, and subconsciously summons all manner of shadow servants to try and slay her. This puts mobile Ritsuka in danger, as we now have a contract with her, making the shadows want to kill us too. This leaves us with no choice but to travel with Draco and unite her with her 7 incarnadines. Only at her full strength can Draco sever our contract, but at that point, we'd have a fully mature beast on our hands. We're kinda screwed either way. Still, Ritsuka has a tendency to turn even the worst enemies into allies, and there's someone else out of left field hoping this will happen. In the timelines of Fate Extra, Nero happens to be the Saber-class servant of Hakuno Kishinami, an artificial master who ultimately wins the Mooncell Holy Grail War. While the ending of Extra is fairly ambiguous, it appears that Hakuno's bond with Nero is especially profound. In other words, Hakuno's nosy, using the Mooncell's power to keep tabs on Nero in other worlds. Not wanting to see this particular Nero suffer, she's the real culprit behind Ritsuka's contract with Draco. The incarnadines think this setup will allow them to thrive, and it will, but Hakuno's betting on those same circumstances so that Ritsuka can somehow save Draco. Of course, Ritsuka has no clue about any of this. We're just fighting to stay alive. Reluctantly helping us are Tiamat and Setanta, Cuchulain's childhood form. Tiamat's not happy about Draco essentially using us, but can't think of a way to invalidate our contract. If only she had Rule Breaker. Throughout the journey, though, she begins to accept that even Draco is one of her beloved children, and so she fights with us to protect everyone. As for Setanta, well, he's Cuchulain back in his training days, before venturing to the Land of Shadows to learn under Skahak. At least that's how he appears. He's physically and mentally still a young boy, and yet he also happens to inherit memories from his adult self. He's aware of his own legend, and rather than following that path, he hopes to forge his own. To that end, he fights with a wooden staff and sword, rather than the iconic lance Gay Bolg. Setanta was one of the servants fighting alongside Arcade's Ritsuka. That game likes to use prototype designs, but not in this case. He's here with Tiamat to stop Draco's resurrection, but quickly takes a liking to mobile Ritsuka. Protecting Ritsuka proves to be more important than stopping Draco, so he fights as we travel from one singularity to the next in reverse order. The current proof world is shaped like a spiral tower, with Draco's domain at the bottom. The incarnadine demonic beasts reside in their own respective singularities, which are found further up the shaft. Coming to help us in that endeavor is yet another servant, Locusta, a poison maker who's absolutely obsessed with mushrooms for their medicinal and recreational uses. In life, Locusta was hired by Agrippina to poison Emperor Claudius. By extension, she's also the one who poisoned Nero throughout her life. Even though Locusta swore fealty to Nero, she feared Agrippina too much to disobey orders. By the time Agrippina was out of the picture, Locusta could do nothing to fully cure Nero's constant headaches. Well, I suppose there is one cure. To amend her mistakes, Locusta wanted to put Nero out of her misery with a euthanizing poison. However, she was never bold enough to use it, instead watching from afar as Nero agonized outside Rome's gates as an outcast. This refined poison becomes her noble phantasm, Finis Venenum Nero, which she hopes to finally use on Draco. As such, she takes control of a golden elevator, the Twilight Ladder, which travels between the singularities. Ideally, they will reach Septum, where Locusta can convince Draco to drink her poison. Until then, she helps Ritsuka and Draco as they ascend. At first, things get hella silly. Arcade's seventh singularity, Babylon, centered around King Nebuchadnezzar II, a Neo-Babylonian king who rebuilt the city of Babylon, along with its wondrous hanging gardens. He inherited power from the Age of Gods, but was unable to use it because his life came after many of the gods already left for the reverse side of the world. To correct this, he conspired with Draco, using her Holy Grail to travel back in time to just after Gilgamesh's death. Emerging as a clone of Gilgamesh, Nebuchadnezzar declared himself Gilgamesh II and went on to make Babylon more prosperous than ever. He fought against Chaldea, and upon his defeat, Draco flooded the city, remarking it a fitting end for such a utopia. Well, rather than ascending the Golden Hanging Gardens to confront a reincarnated Nebuchadnezzar 2.5, this event's Babylon is a complete joke, appearing as the Las Vegas summer event. Instead of Gilgamesh II, we get Gorgeous P, who hoards his wealth atop a skyscraper. He winds up giving us our first incarnadine demonic beast, Luxuria, after playing around on the beach with Femme Merlin, or rather, Lady Avalon. Arcade's sixth singularity, Lost Jerusalem, centered around Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar. It was his order's duty to protect people on their pilgrimage to the Holy Land. The Knights were a wealthy and influential military force who were ultimately brought down through twisted rumors of performing black magic. King Philip IV of France had the Knights abolished for heresy, and Molay was burned at the stake. Molay had spent his life trying to reform the Knights to better serve the will of God, so on the day of his death, he screamed curses at Philip and the Pope. Ominously, both Philip and his conspirator died within the year. Thus, Molay is known as an honorable knight, tainted by suspicion of the dark arts. In Arcade, he got his hands on a Holy Grail and essentially lost his mind. On what he believed was the word of God, he made a pilgrimage across the sixth singularity, slaughtering everyone in his path and feeding their souls to the Grail. At the same time, he built graves along the road for his victims. Upon reaching Jerusalem, he renamed it Lost Jerusalem and remained there in agony. Foolishly, he thought he could provide people salvation through the Grail, but to do so, they would all have to give up their bodies. One of the servants helping him was Georgios. He would guard Jerusalem's gates and execute visitors much like Galahad did in the Camelot singularity. Both Ozymandias and Lancer Artoria, claiming to hail from the mobile games universe, help Arcade's Chaldea defeat Molay, revealing that Draco had been manipulating him. Once again, that grim story is revisited as a joke. The road to Jerusalem is a silly Halloween road littered with pumpkins, courtesy of Elizabeth Bathory. Instead of meeting Jacques de Molay's male version, it's his female form. I don't plan to cover any of the Halloween events, but it was a past Halloween event where FGO Mobile first encountered Femme Molay. Based on the false accusations hoisted onto the Knights Templar, this Molay allowed herself to be possessed by the outer god Shub-Niggurath, Holy Mother of the Abyss. Not that it's any surprise, but I happen to prefer this version. Nonetheless, she's silly, being a total edgelord who wants to bring about eternal Halloween, or something dumb like that. We make our way past Georgios and confront her Lovecraftian monsters. To oppose us, Molay summons forth Baphomet, the demonic beast the Knights Templar were accused of worshipping. Under the influence of an incarnadine, Aloces, also called Ira, Baphomet explodes into Grail mud, tainting Draco into fighting us before she's complete. Having enough of this nonsense, the male Jacques de Molay takes over his female counterpart and seals away the incarnadine so he can restore Draco's sanity. It's really weird, but at least we make some progress. Going forward, we don't really have a lot of reference material, as FGO Arcade doesn't feature cutscenes for earlier singularities. Instead, what we encounter are the singularities we're used to if they had to deal with an incarnadine rather than a holy grail. In the case of E Pluribus Unum, everyone that used to be fighting each other have instead united to keep the incarnadine Invidia at bay. Ku Hullen Alter chose to seal it within himself. Skahak, then, keeps killing Ku over and over so it doesn't resurrect, while other servants try to keep us from reaching the White House. Setanta gets the chance to defeat his older self and restore the incarnadine Invidia to Draco. Even Skahak, his own mentor, falls to Setanta's blade. Determined to live differently from his legend, he vows to kill her in reality, since Skahak's technically not dead in proper human history. She's always wanted to die, so strangely, this is a sentimental moment. London tosses in a little twist to speed things along. Under the city, Mordred and Lancer Artoria Alter fight to keep the incarnadine Gula sealed away. Despite their familial drama, Mordred is willing to protect Artoria, even though her alter form has already parted with her duties as king. Regardless, neither of them are able to hold off the arrival of another incarnadine. Acedia, who should reside in the third singularity above, somehow broke free and is now aiding in Gula's escape. Rather than fog, London is pelted by Okeanos in the form of rain. The incarnadines corrupt Jack the Ripper, enhancing her desire to return to the womb. Tiamat is saddened by this, and agrees to stay behind so that Ritska and the others can escape the singularity before it's entirely flooded. We take the elevator up a tier, only for Jack and the incarnadines to follow us. To give us a fighting chance, Artoria Alter uses the last of her strength to bring up Francis Drake's ship, the Golden Hind, which we use to fight the incarnadines in Okeanos. Defeating them allows Draco to absorb them into herself, though the process seems painful. It's a sign that these incarnadines don't plan to follow orders anymore. The Septim Singularity used to be its own journey filled with Roman servants, and even Attila the Hun. In this event, however, it manifests as a single environment, the sunset Nero observed before taking her own life. Draco assumes this is the incarnadine's way of provoking her. The next one, Superbia, pretends to be the demon god pillar Flauros, but we promptly kick its ass. It's at this point that Locusta makes her move, trying to poison everyone, only to forget that Ritska is immune to poison. She strips down, revealing her motives and her nice body. As an homage to Fate Extra CCC, Locusta hopes to probe Draco's subconscious by unlocking her SG, or Secret Garden. It's like diving into a person's mind, or heart, I guess, to expose the things people typically hide. Within, Draco reluctantly admits that she wants to die, that this entire spiral-proof world is meant to bring her a definitive end. Locusta finds that miserable, thinking the only way Nero can avoid a tragic death is to die by her golden poison. Regardless of the method, Ritska doesn't want Draco to die, and neither do the incarnadines. The six inside Draco choose this moment to rebel, filling her empty chalice with Locusta's poison. Possessed by her own beast familiars, Draco flees to the first singularity, where she plans to blossom as a beast once more. The possessed Draco arrives in Orleans ahead of us and reclaims her final incarnadine, Avaritia. By the time we arrive, the singularity is nothing like it once was. Now it's just a storm of fire and bloody grail mud. After failing miserably, Locusta begs us to save Draco before her consciousness is dissolved within the incarnadines. We face off against all 7 incarnadines, who have now each taken on their own individual humanoid bodies. Unable to defeat them, though, we can only hold back their flames as they ascend to their true form, a massive 7-headed dragon. In turn, Tiamat ascends to her adult self, blasting the incarnadines with her own bestial power. This gives Ritska the chance to dive into the beast's core, encountering a vision of Hakuno from the moon cell on the way. With our resolve rekindled, we order Draco to live, and she breaks free of the incarnadines, taking on an adult form of her own. She is now the demon beast Emperor Draco, a beast who cursed her downfall, but now accepts it and can move forward without cursing the world. Her strength of will is enough to knock some sense into the Incarnadines, forcing them to obey once more. Honoring her word, Draco breaks our contract and sends us home with the promise that, maybe someday, Ritsuka can summon her properly. All the servants involved vanish, and in Ritsuka's absence, Draco greets the sunset, glad to have her own vision of Hakuno. Servants don't always remember their other summonings. Most of the time they're not supposed to, but it's clear Draco recalls the stuff from Extra. In the epilogue, we find out that Satanta clung to the elevator, returning to Arcaldea. After serving Arcade's Ritsuka, he now wants to serve us. Mashu, Katak, and Saber Nero are surprised to learn we befriended a beast and demand to hear the full story. So there you have it. The Lilim Harlot event serves to bridge the gap between FGO Arcade and the mobile game, while putting a nice end to things. Apparently, Muramasa and Musashi in Arcade go on to sever Draco's link to other universes, bringing a definitive end to the Arcade's story. It's such a damn shame those awesome 3D models haven't been used in a more accessible game. I was actually surprised to learn that Arcade's story really didn't start until late in the game. The only two singularities that matter have been translated by fans, and its Lilim Harlot finale can be read online through a browser recreation. As far as I'm aware, anything about it worth knowing is already in this video. I expect our next chapter to be Ordeal Call 1, but until then, celebrate your fandom. Thanks for watching. This channel relies on support from viewers like you.
Please help us out by dropping a like and comment. Subscribe for more videos, and be sure to enable notifications. Or hit up our Discord so you never miss out on a new upload.
Most importantly, if you can spare it, please sign up as a channel member, either through YouTube, Patreon, or Subscribestar. You can find links in the description. We've got perks like exclusive content or early access.
Until next time,
Celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Otaku Mom, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Sunbro Torian, Dionysus, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X77, and Alistair Bernadotte. Thank you all so much.